Jason, have you ever been hypnotized?
Terrified of being hypnotized, Garth. I think even more scared than karaoke. Truth.
Oh, wow. I was hypnotized once, but our guest this week actually does hypnosis as part of her practice.
Right?
And we learn so much about what hypnotizing is, and especially what it isn't, because we have these fears of what it is. And we learn a little bit about how accessing ourselves in a different way is an interruption of kind of like the way we've been programmed. And so we're super excited about our upcoming podcast with Julie Cass.
Oh man, author, thinker, emoter. I
Yep.
mean, she talked a lot about I asked a question in this one about, do you worry about having your heart broken if you lead with heart? And her response, I think, is pure magic. I think our
Yeah.
listeners are going to love this. This is really, really deep and insightful. And yes, we cover the role of hypnosis in leadership development, and it's not what you think. I think you're really
Yeah.
going to be enlightened.
Yeah, and one of the things about this episode is we talk about positivity and having as a leader positive messaging, but also setting up the people that you lead, so they can receive that positive messaging and become a part of that, a part of the culture you want to create. So we got a great episode for you, folks, and it's an old friend of mine from university, Julie Cass. She's an author, as Jason said, of a book called Me First. I recommend it. It's available on Amazon, and you can listen to her narrate the book.
Yeah, I'm positive this is going to be the best 20 minutes of your week. Enjoy the listen.
With Garth and Jason, we dive right in, breaking down Ted's world. Let's begin from AFC, Richmond's field to your day to day. Lassoing leadership's here to stay. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow.
Welcome to season 2 of Lassoing Leadership. I am your host, Garth Nichols.
And I'm also your host, Jason Rogers. This season of our podcast, we dive deep into 10 leadership principles that surface for us throughout season 1 and throughout the entire series of Ted Lasso. While you don't have to have been with us through season 1, we do encourage you to drop back into those episodes. There are some good ones to listen to.
Yeah, or re-listen to. We're calling our approach a leadership coach, where our sort of game plan is laid out in like a series of 3. For each theme, there'll be 3 different episodes.
Yeah, we're hoping you come along with us for each of those as we introduce, then we talk to a guest, and then we bring in our listener feedback in the 3rd episode. And this week, we are looking at positivity and the role that a positive attitude plays in effective leadership that is kinder and more compassionate, kind of like the Lasso way. We and our listeners are looking at everything from Sean Aker. And I really do think that he captured our imaginations with his work in positive psychology and the way he talked about it in his TED Talk or his book, The Happiness Advantage. I think any of those things are going to be amazing. I think you can go from there to, folks like Duckworth or even Dweck when they talk about mindset and grit. There is so much to explore. But today, I am thrilled to have a special guest here who's an author and an expert in this area. So let's get right to it, Garth.
Yeah. So when we were examining all of these different themes, I did some research on who's an expert in these areas, and one of the places I went to was LinkedIn, and I was looking there, and then I found an old university friend of mine who's actually a published author. She's founder and director of The Positive Change. She's author of a book called Me First and another upcoming book that's to be published. I'm sure we're going to hear about it. But we'd love to welcome Julie Cass. Julie, introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thanks, Garth. Thank you, Jason. I am so thrilled to be here because you guys are talking about one of my favorite topics. I loved what you said, Jason, bringing kindness. I think it's so important and so up. So yeah, my name is Julie Cass, founder, CEO of the Positive Change Group. And it really is, I do a variety of different things, but one of my biggest passions is really allowing us to let go of some of those programs or stories or what I call limiting beliefs that don't serve us and hold us back. And I one of my passions is working one-on-one with clients. So I do a lot of executive coaching in the leadership realm, but I also go into organizations and work on bringing, like helping with burnout, resilience, mindset, bringing positivity in the workplace. So I do a lot of those kind of wellness coaching programs as well. I am about to publish my second book, which is all on, heart confidence in leadership and really leading with our heart and why that is so important. And I'm thrilled to be here. I use different techniques to do this because I learned in my own life I was living too much in fear. I was robbing myself of my own joy. And success to me was a program that was sacrifice and work like a dog 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. And to be a great leader, you had to put everyone else first and you sacrificed yourself. And it came at a huge cost for me. And I thought there's got to be a better way to quote unquote be successful, whatever we define that is, and nurture our own heart and wellness as well along the way. So that's my impact.
And we're so happy you're here. And your journey is something that your book Me First talks a lot about, and that makes the book so relatable, like through your vulnerability. And we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but one of the things that resonated with me was your identification of the hustle. But I'm looking forward to this conversation. So before we jump right in, I want to remind our listeners, if you've listened to the first podcast that we did on positivity, and as you listen to this one, please submit your questions to lassoingleadership@gmail.com or through LinkedIn, Spotify, Instagram, whatever. Slip into our DMs. Jason, kick us off.
Julie, your introduction is really compelling, and I love that phrase or that thought about leading with heart. For our listeners, can you define what leading with heart is? And then I've got two follow-ups. One is, what's the greatest benefit? But the second one is, what's the greatest risk of leading that way? So let's start with the definition of leading with heart and then benefit and risk, if you don't mind.
Yes. So thank you. Great question. So leading with heart to me means we are in touch with our emotional intelligence. It's knowing that we are human and as leaders, meaning we're not robots. I think for years I thought just, put it into robotic gear and kind of ignore those emotions that come up. Ignore the emotions of burnout as a perfect example. Just ignore it and plow through it. And it comes at a huge cost and a huge detriment. So to me, leading with heart or being a heart first leader is I'm first in tuned with myself as a leader, recognizing I need nourishment. I need to listen to the programs that are not serving me in my own head, whether that's about my own health, my own wellness, my own confidence, my own ability. Because when I do that or heal those programs that don't serve me, I then can step up for my team with heart, meaning I see the opportunities in them. I believe in them. I believe in their success. And I can create an environment that is around nurturing our emotions, our wellness. And I have this saying with companies, it's like when you have a happy team, you have happier profits. Like the two are connected. So I think it really is remembering, like a lot of people say, we spend more time at work than we do anywhere else. So leading with love, we couldn't even talk about that 10 years ago. Now I'm like, of course we should be leading with love. It should be a happy, nurturing, joyful place because we will get the most out of not just our company mission, but we'll get the most out of our teams in a way that is nurturing and thriving versus surviving, which is, I think, such a program we're so used to.
Now, I think if I was a skeptical leader about this approach, because I think it's conventional yet unconventional, I think I might ask the questions like, do I run the risk of getting my heart broken? And is that risk too high? Does that not impact my wellness overall? So that comes back to like, what's the greatest risk of leading with heart? And I'm curious about your opinion on that.
I love that question. And I think it's kind of the same thing in a relationship, Jason. It's like, if I go in with 1 foot in, 1 foot out, I think I'm protecting myself, but I'm actually closing off all of those opportunities to feel more joy, to feel more just accomplishment. And so there's risk in the sense that, is there risk to vulnerability? Is there risk to, when I was leading teams and I sort of led our family business, with 350 employees, there were times where I went up and I did a heartfelt talk and I would get emotional. And my old program was, you're showing weakness if you do that. My new program was, you're showing truth, you're showing heart, you're showing your care, and you're showing vulnerability. And the response you get when you show your humanness, like your human side, is unbelievable, because we don't always have all the answers. And I also think this too. I think a leader that's in touch with their own emotions and their own heart, they can actually handle feedback and they can handle criticism better than if I just protect myself. Maybe no one will say anything bad. You're actually doing the opposite. Like, you have more of that inner confidence because you know yourself more, that you can handle adversity better when you lead with heart. It's actually the opposite. That's the irony. And I learned that on my own leadership journey. You know, it's not a big.
Yeah,
Go
and you
ahead, Garth.
covered like also the benefits, like what the rewards you can reap from doing that. I love that answer. We have some aspiring leaders who listen to this podcast who are in education. It's not uncommon for these education leaders to work hard professionally, emotionally, like even spiritually, right? Because they are so present with their students. Education's a calling in for a lot of these people. But they do it, as you mentioned, to the point of burnout. And in your book,
Yeah.
Me First, you write a lot about the hustle and, you know, the role that your parents and upbringing play in your early approach to your life. So my question is this: how did you realize you were in the hustle, that it wasn't making you happy? And how did you break from it? Like, maybe what questions did you ask? What was a point of realization?
Yeah, well, when you get to a total, like, your world collapses, you start looking, going, I mean, and truthfully, I had no perspective on life. I was just so singularly focused on work. I went through a divorce. Even some of my closest friends were like, "You're missing the most important dates." I was so singularly focused on creating, reaching those goals in my career and work, that I forgot my own humanness, my own human side, like that. I'm not a robot. And I think the reality is, it just doesn't feel good. Like, when we are in hustle, when we are in burnout, it doesn't feel good. And I do this because I was saying to you earlier, I do a lot of hypnosis and EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, which is a way to actually heal some of those programs that don't serve us. They're really programs, they're stories that connect us to our own worth. So I connected my self-worth to how many hours I put in a day, how much I was producing. If I wasn't working long enough hours, I wasn't worthy enough as a leader. I wasn't worthy enough to create the results. And so it was a program. It was a story that I connected to my own worth. And again, my life, unfortunately, and this is what I teach people, your life doesn't have to blow up for you to get this message. But know it doesn't feel good when you are in that hustle and that burnout. You're out of balance with yourself, truly.
That's so good. It reminds me of Arianna Huffington's book Thrive a little bit, and she talks about her moment and her reprogramming in that as well. I think this is a message so many leaders need to hear, because I think more often than not, we think to ourselves, in servant leadership, we work harder and we demonstrate, that we're working harder than everybody else, and then everybody else should work hard. But I'm not sure that's the message you're bringing forward. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, I think servant leadership is interesting, because it's like, but we forget about being in service to ourselves.
Yes.
And that's the missing piece. And so what I love is, you guys being in education, the biggest thing we want to teach our youth is tune in, dial into your emotions, be in service to yourself, having healthy boundaries when something doesn't feel right, being able to advocate for yourself, have a voice for yourself. So to me, as leaders, but we want to be doing that too, then we're creating that environment where we give our team, our students, permission to be able to do. We're fostering that environment versus just talking about it. We're feeling it. And that's the difference, I think, with Heart First, is we feel it. Like it feels authentic. We're not just doing the doing part.
So good. I think, we're talking about positivity this month on the podcast, and, let's talk about the other side of it, right, Julie? So being positive all the time is 100% not realistic.
Nope.
So, how do you prepare, yourself or those who you work with to understand that reality, that it's okay not to be 100% positive all the time. Yeah. So how do you do that for the people you work with, or even for yourself?
So I love that you asked this question, because I would be such a hypocrite if I said that was possible. Even though I teach people to have these tools to regulate, to, be in touch with their emotions, I still get angry. I still get frustrated. I still feel sometimes that imposter syndrome or lack of confidence. We are human. And I think that's normal and it's expected. And the most important thing is that we don't ignore those emotions, but we actually validate them for ourselves. We've been taught to brush it aside. But I have this saying, you take you with you everywhere you go. So if you're ignoring those emotions, then that becomes a bigger problem. But the difference is, Jason, and what I learned in my own life and what I work with clients on is validating the lower emotions of anger, of fear, of doubt, but not having them have the emotional shackles on you that they dictate your life, meaning you're not lingering in those emotions, or those emotions aren't, the main dominant feeling that, oh my gosh, this is my body feeling self-doubt or fear. It's my signal. What can I do to shift out of it? But I have to validate it first, because I don't want it to rule me. I don't want to live in fear. Because again, when we work from fear, we're working and it feels very forceful and everything feels harder. So it's the opposite. It's actually validating the emotions for yourself. We have the saying in hypnosis is like, what we can look at, what we can admit, we can transcend. What we ignore keeps persisting. It keeps following us. So it's not a matter of ignoring them. We're going to have those feelings. We're going to not be positive all the time. That's okay. It's just, I can get out of that quicker now than I used to, once we get more in touch with ourselves and understand that we need to validate those feelings.
Now, Julie,
Yeah,
I had a friend who's always said, like, name it to tame it, and that really does resonate for me in the emotional intelligence side of things. Before we move on like, you've mentioned hypnosis a couple times, and I think this is outside the realm of comfort or normalcy for a lot of leaders. So I want to, name it to tame it a little bit. And could you give us and our listeners like the elevator pitch on how you think that work can improve, leadership or personal development or those things? Tell us a little bit more about that. I'm curious.
Okay. So I have a saying where it's, if you bury it, you carry it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
If I bury my emotions, I carry them. All hypnosis does, and we can do self-hypnosis, it's just a gateway into your inner self, knowing, intelligent self, where we are in alignment. And so we can do that through pure states of focus. We can do that through meditation. When we're watching commercials, we're being hypnotized. Do you notice, like, you're watching a commercial, all of a sudden you feel hungry because you're watching food on the channel? Like, we're being hypnotized all the time. So it's just learning to actually hypnotize us with those positive messaging. Waking up in the morning, a simple thing. I get to do this versus I have to do this. When I say I have to do this, I feel heavy. I feel dread. When I say I get to do this, I step into gratitude, and I'm so privileged. I get to go to work. I get to lead a team. I get to positively impact students every single day and create life changes. That feels really different. So it's really like through that self-talk that we can positively hypnotize ourselves and just change our story, our programming.
No, I love that. And we've got, like, I'm trying to write down all the great sayings and language that we have here, but the thing that's sticking with me is this notion of, like, programming. There are things that have been programmed into us, whether it's our upbringing, our parents, whether it's a culture that we've been living in for a long, long time. So I really appreciate that. And one thing you said about negative emotions is that, and if I heard you correctly, these negative emotions, we have to honor them.
Yeah.
We have to validate them, but understand that they don't define us, and they are not our dominant story and not our dominant programming. We can shift out of it, whether that's through hypnosis, whether that's through meditation, whether it's through other practices. So I love that.
Telling yourself in that moment a different story. I look at it as a GPS. Like, our emotions are like a GPS to say,
Nice.
oh, I'm feeling off right now. I'm out of alignment. And sometimes I'll say to people, step away from the work you're doing. Maybe go out, take a breath of fresh air, some pattern interrupt, rather than just plowing through and ignoring it.
Yeah, that's powerful. We got to wrap up. This has flown by. Julie, there's so much that you can share. Where can our listeners find you and your work?
Thank you. So thepositivechange.com is my website. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook at The Positive Change Group, and LinkedIn, Julie Cass.
Yeah, and I can't recommend the book enough. I learned tons as I was going through it. A bunch of these sayings are reminding me of elements of the book. But your story is also very compelling, Julie. And I chose to listen to the book. I strongly recommend that because Julie narrates it, and as you can tell, she's got a great narrating voice. She's got a strong speaking voice. So, yeah, thanks, Julie.
Thank you guys so
Amazing.
much for sharing this message.
Yeah.
And before we go, I want to take a moment to remind our listeners that we're taking questions, and we can always feed these questions back to Julie, and Garth and I'll be addressing the questions in the coming episodes. So please provide any ideas, insights, wonderings, curiosities, so we can help you along your leadership journey as we're finding our way along ours.
Yeah. And so thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to share this with your friends. Julie, can you do us the honor of taking us home with our famous tagline?
Totally. Until next time, keep leading the Lasso way.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Julie. So
Step up to the mic. It's time to play. Lassoing leadership every day. From the pitch to the boardroom, lessons call to mind. Keep leading the lasso way. You'll find we've got heart, we've got soul, and humor too. Exploring how TED shows what leaders should do. With Garth and Jason, we dive right in, breaking down Ted's world. Let's begin from AFC Richmond's Field to your day-to-day. Lassoing leadership's here to stay. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show.